All right, so get this. Today we are diving into the world of agentic IDEs. Like the coding tools that we all use.
Yeah.
Well, just imagine if they all got a huge AI upgrade. And think less like autocomplete
Yeah.
and more like having an AI partner
Yeah.
who can handle really complex tasks. It's almost like magic.
Yeah, it is a pretty wild shift. Like we've gone from basic text editors to things like VS Code and even AI assistants like Copilot. But this is like next level.
Exactly. I was reading about this new IDE called Windsurf. It's blowing my mind. They have this feature called Supercomplete. And it's way more than just suggesting like the next line of code.
Right.
It can do things like, let's say you need to rename a variable. Supercomplete can handle that
Wow.
across your entire code base.
That's a perfect example of what makes these tools agentic. They're not just reacting to your typing, they're understanding your intent and taking action.
Like it can read your mind. But it gets even cooler. Windsurf also has this Cascade agent that can actually analyze your code, spot areas for improvement, and even write code autonomously
Oh, wow.
based on what you tell it to do. Like, hey, Cascade, make this code run faster. And it just does it.
It's like having a superpowered coding intern who never sleeps. I remember back in the day, spending hours manually optimizing code. This kind of automation could be a total game changer for developers.
So this article I was reading on coding beauty basically claims that this could be the future of software development, like AI handling the entire process, from gathering requirements to actually deploying the finished product. Imagine that. You tell the AI what you want, and it builds the whole thing.
And not just builds it, but potentially even gathers feedback from users and iterates on the design based on their needs. We're talking about a truly collaborative development process between humans and AI.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to process. But what about the developers themselves? I mean, is this going to put them out of a job?
That's the big question, isn't it? Some developers might worry about AI taking over, but I think it's more about shifting roles. Instead of getting bogged down in the nitty-gritty, developers could focus on higher-level tasks like design, architecture, and solving really complex problems. It could free them up to be more creative and innovative.
So maybe it's less about replacement and more about augmentation. Like AI becomes a powerful tool in the developer's toolbox, helping them to build better software faster.
Exactly. And this is where Windsurf's approach is really interesting. They're focusing on making these AI agents feel like an extension of the developer's thinking, almost like a co-pilot.
Right. And the fact that they had to adjust their pricing model for Cascade because developers are using it so heavily just shows how much demand there is for this kind of power.
It's clearly resonating with developers who are seeing the potential to streamline their workflow and tackle more ambitious projects. It really is a fascinating evolution. Remember when code completion was this revolutionary thing? Now we're talking about AI that can refactor entire code bases or write complex functions from a simple prompt.
It's amazing. But honestly, a little intimidating too, right? Like, are we all going to need to become AI whisperers just to write code in the future?
It's a valid concern. The learning curve could be steep for some developers. But think about it this way. Every new technology comes with its own set of challenges and opportunities. The key is to be adaptable and willing to learn new skills.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's get back to Windsurf for a second. You mentioned their Supercomplete feature earlier. Can you give me like a real-world example of how that might work in practice?
Absolutely. Let's say you're building a web application with React, and you need to create a form. That captures user input. Traditionally, you'd have to write all the code for the form elements, the input validation, and the state management. But with Supercomplete, you might just start typing something like, create a form for user registration.
And then what? Does it just magically build the entire form for you?
It's not magic, but it can feel like it. Supercomplete would analyze your intent, understand the context of your project, and then generate the necessary code. For a basic registration form, it could even pre-populate common fields like name, email, and password, saving you a ton of time and effort.
So it's kind of like having an AI pair programmer who's always one step ahead of you, anticipating your needs and filling in the gaps.
That's a great way to put it. And the beauty of it is that you can always go back and customize the generated code to fit your specific requirements. It's not about replacing your skills as a developer. It's about augmenting them and making you more productive.
I'm starting to see the appeal. But this all sounds pretty futuristic. Is Windsurf the only player in this agentic IDE game?
Actually, no. There are other interesting tools emerging, like Cursor, which is also built around this idea of intent-based coding. It's fascinating to see different companies exploring this space and coming up with innovative solutions.
So it really feels like we're on the cusp of a major shift in how software is developed. But this article I found does raise some concerns about the potential downsides.
Right. It points out that relying too heavily on AI could lead to a decline in fundamental coding skills. If developers become overly dependent on AI to write their code, they might lose their ability to debug complex problems or understand the underlying logic of the software they're building.
That's a good point. It's like using a calculator all the time. Eventually, you might forget how to do basic math in your head.
Exactly. So it's crucial to strike a balance. AI should be seen as a powerful tool that can assist developers, but it shouldn't be a crutch that replaces their core skills and knowledge.
So maybe the future of software development isn't about humans versus AI, but rather humans and AI working together as a team.
Precisely. And that's where the real excitement lies. Imagine a world where developers can leverage AI to automate tedious tasks, freeing them up to focus on the creative and strategic aspects of software development.
Okay, let's say I'm convinced. I want to try out Windsurf and see what this Agentic IDE thing is all about. How do I get started?
Well, it's developed by the same team behind the Codeium extension for VS Code, which you might already be familiar with. You can find Windsurf at Codeium.com. They offer a free version so you can test the waters. But to unlock the full power, especially the Cascade feature, you'll need to upgrade to the Pro version.
And I remember you mentioning that the demand for Cascade was so high they had to change their pricing model?
That's right. They originally offered unlimited Cascade use for a flat monthly fee, but they switched to a pay-as-you-go system to handle the sheer volume of usage.
Wow, that speaks volumes about how useful developers are finding this feature.
Absolutely. It's a real testament to the power of these new AI-driven tools and the impact they're having on the way software is built.
This all feels like we're on the verge of something really big, almost like the early days of the internet.
It's definitely an exciting time to be a developer. The possibilities are endless.
But with all this AI advancement, I can't help but wonder.
Go on, I'm intrigued.
Well, if AI is taking on more and more of the technical heavy lifting, what does that mean for the future of software developers? What skills will be most valuable in this new landscape?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It makes you wonder, if coding as we know it is going to become obsolete?
It's not about coding becoming obsolete. It's more like the nature of coding is evolving. You know, it's like the printing press. People still write, but the way we produce and distribute written content has completely changed.
So maybe instead of focusing on writing every single line of code, developers will become more like architects, designing the blueprints for complex systems, and then guiding the AI to build them.
Exactly. It's about moving up the value chain, focusing on the strategic aspects of software development. And that requires a different set of skills.
Like what? If someone's listening to this thinking, okay, my coding skills might be less valuable in the future, what should they be focusing on learning now?
Well, first and foremost, a deep understanding of algorithms and data structures will always be essential. Even if you're not writing the code yourself, you need to understand how AI is interpreting your instructions and building the software.
So it's not just about knowing how to code, but about understanding the logic behind the code and how to effectively communicate with AI.
Precisely. And beyond the technical skills, things like critical thinking, problem solving, and communication will be even more important.
Because you'll need to be able to clearly articulate your vision to the AI, troubleshoot any issues that arise, and ensure the final product meets the user's needs.
Exactly. It's about becoming more well-rounded, not just a code monkey, but a true software craft person.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive. Honestly, I feel like I need to go back and listen to it again just to process everything.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure. But the key takeaway is that the software development landscape is changing rapidly, and those who embrace these changes and adapt their skills will be the ones who thrive in the country.
So for anyone listening who's feeling a little overwhelmed, or maybe even a little scared by all this, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Don't panic. Embrace the change. Start exploring these new tools like Windsurf. Experiment, learn, and see how you can integrate AI into your workflow.
And remember, this isn't about AI replacing humans. It's about AI empowering humans to create even more amazing things.
Absolutely. The future of software development is bright, and it's going to be a wild ride. Buckle up.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of agentic IDEs. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. And until next time, keep coding, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.